And welcome back to another preview episode of Banditland Boulevard. We got back-to-back previews because the Bandits are playing back-to-back games Friday night and Saturday night with playoff implications on the line. Friday night home against Las Vegas, Saturday night on the road in Albany against the two last place teams, the first last and the second last teams in the National Lacrosse League. It's real simple. Bandits win one game, they're in the playoffs. They at least punched their ticket to the dance. We don't know anything about higher seeds as of right now, but the Bandits currently in the standings are the number one seed in the National Lacrosse League. Trevor Howard here, Jake Howard here with me as well. Tony unfortunately cannot be here tonight. Bro's got a bowl. He's got a bowl quick 300 tonight. So we'll just do this quick back-to-back preview here. We'll try to make it quick because it's fairly simple. Win one game, you're in the playoffs, and then the true march to May really begins.
Yeah, and also, if you sweep the weekend and Georgia and San Diego both lose, that clinches us a home playoff game. So let's have that happen too.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Love me a nice home playoff game.
Yeah, I mean, at least we can mention. Hopefully, at the end of this weekend, there's a chance that the Bandits can host a quarterfinal matchup, if that was ever a doubt, as the way that this season has gone for the Bandits so far. But you got Las Vegas, you got Albany, two very vulnerable teams. The Bandits have never lost to Las Vegas. They've only played them once. It was last year in their old arena on the actual strip in Las Vegas. They now play in Henderson. I think that was the Tucker Out game. This is also the final matchup of the Tucker Out Cup. So whoever comes out on top of this game pretty much wins the Tucker Cup as well. It is Mental Health Awareness Night for the Bandits in Las Vegas. You got a team coming into town in Las Vegas that gave up a 20-burger against their opponents last week, and I think they scored 11 goals. They gave up 20 goals. This is a team that gives up a crap ton of goals. Defense isn't strong. They got a couple key weapons that we can look at on their offensive side, but I mean, realistically, this is a game that the Bandits should really grab by the horns and pull these guys down with ease, but you never really know in the sport. Las Vegas is a very vulnerable team. They really don't have much to play for. The Bandits absolutely have something to play for right now. They know that if they win, we can get rid of this. You know, we can already clinch the playoff spot and know that, hey, we at least made it to the dance. Let's move on to bigger and better things. And to clinch on March 21st, definitely nothing to scoff at.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. Yeah, right now, with the way the Bandits have been rolling, we've been having a great season so far. 10-2 record, off to a really great start this year. So yeah, clinching a playoff spot on March 21st, definitely early. But you know what? I'd rather have it early, get the clinch out of the way, and then just worry about the rest of the way. Worry about clinching home field. So yeah, 10-2 record right now is phenomenal. So let's go in. We should be able to get a nice win tomorrow night against Vegas. No disrespect to Vegas, but they're at the bottom of the league, 3-11 record, I believe. So obviously we're at the top of the league with a 10-2 record. So yeah, we just get this game out of the way, play 60 minutes of Bandits lacrosse, like we know, like the boys know that they can clinch a playoff, be the first team to clinch a playoff spot, night and day from how it was last year. So yeah, would love to see if the boys clinch a playoff spot tomorrow. Get that out of the way, and then let's focus on getting home field for the rest of the season.
Yeah, the only downside to clinching the playoffs this early is that teams will have a tendency to kind of lay back and sort of limp their way into the first round of the playoffs. They already have this whole thing locked up. They're like, okay, whatever. Okay, it's time to play now. Maybe it's too late, but I don't think you have anything to really worry about with this team. And, I mean, they just beat up a very, very flashy Calgary team last week on the road, a building that's been a house of horrors for them. Now, we know as Bandit supporters and Bandit podcasters that the Bandits on Friday night in Banditland seems like a curse to the team. Now, they don't really perform as well as they usually do on maybe a Saturday night in Banditland. But again, you have this very, very vulnerable team that has a couple flashy players on the offensive side of the ball. They don't really wow anyone as far as their defensive numbers or goaltending. If they are going to wow some people, it's for the wrong reasons only. Giving up 20 goals how many times? 20-plus goals how many times this year? They do have a couple key players to look at. Jack Hanna, I think, is probably the number one player that I'm going to be looking at. That dude is an absolute superstar. He is the Lamborghini pulled up into the trailer park. That is that team. You know that old meme where you see the Lamborghini or the Camaro or whatever it is pulled into the trailer park driveway? That is what Jack Hanna is on the Las Vegas Desert Dogs. A guy with 32 goals, 38 assists, 70 points in how many games did they play? 14?
14.
70 points in 14 games. Very, very good numbers from him on a team that really hasn't been finding their winning ways.
Yeah, they had this team, even though they're at the bottom of the league, 3-11 record, they do have a lot of young talent on this roster, including or not including Jack Hanna. They got guys like Jonathan Donville, who they got from Panther City in the expansion draft last year. He's played 14 games so far this year, and he's good for 15 goals, 47 assists. That's 62 points in 14 games. So he is ranked number 2 in their points for this season. And then you got guys like Casey Jackson, 44 points in 14 games. Adam Patra, I think that's how you say his name, 34 points in 14 games.
Kyle Killen.
And then you also got guys, got a lot of definitely a couple solid proven vets. They got Holden Gattoni, who's
Is he back from injury? He is back from injury, isn't he?
Holden was scratched last week, so I don't know if he was injured, but they got him from Philly.
I know that he was hurt for a little bit there in the middle of the season. I didn't know if he was back. Yep.
So 5 goals and 3 assists in 2 games. That's pretty good. And then they also, I keep forgetting that they got this guy. Shane Simpson may have been hurt for a little bit, but he has 3 goals, 2 assists, only 5 points in 7 games. But we all know how phenomenal he can be as far as transition goes. I remember seeing him a lot with Calgary in years past. He would fly up and down the field like it's nobody's business. So they have a lot of talent on that roster. And, you know, I would like to see them put it all together, have them all come together one day, especially with Sean Williams at the helm, Bandits legend. So we'd love to see him have some success with the Vegas Desert Dogs. And also in addition to that, this isn't a player to watch, but it's going to be so cool seeing Sean Williams behind the bench for Vegas.
Yeah,
on the last Tucker out and Fulman night of the season. So it's going to be phenomenal to see. It's really going to be a special moment before the face-off. But yeah, definitely, this is very cliche for us to say, but Hanna and Donville definitely should be the 1-2 players to look out for in tomorrow's game, just because they're both young and they can both single-handedly take over games.
I mean, that's exactly what it is. 70 points for Hanna, 62 for Donville. Combine the two together, they got 7 special teams power play goals. By the way, this is the first time Las Vegas in their history is coming to Banditland. So I don't think a lot of those players know. Maybe Holden Gattoni is probably the one that understands this place the most out of the entire team.
And Shane Simpson and Sean Williams.
Sean Williams for sure. But I mean, Kyle Killen, I don't think he's got a clue. Jack Hanna, I don't know if he knows what's in store for him just yet. But if you really go down the roster for Las Vegas, they do have some pretty good talent. I think the lights might be a little too bright for them being their first game in Banditland, and they're going to be playing in front of a crowd that's above and beyond 17,000 fans, I would imagine. If playoff implications are on the line, I would say it's a guarantee pretty much that at least 17,000 fans will be there. But as I'm looking through these player stats for Las Vegas right now, you don't run into, I mean, we mentioned this before, the defense and goaltending has been a train wreck for them all season long. You don't see a defenseman until you reach about 13th place on the depth chart. 13th.
Any of those guys look familiar to you? One of these guys knows how Banditland is.
You're talking defenseman, right?
Yeah.
Off the top of my head, I really don't know, but I mean, yeah, I don't know.
He's even on the roster, but David Brock has played 13 games for the Vegas Desert Dogs this year.
Yeah, I remember he retired and then he signed with them or something like that.
He signed with Halifax, wanting to win a championship, and then what happened after that?
Yeah, that was hilarious. He came back to Buffalo, unretired, and went to Halifax. That was what happened. And then Las Vegas must have picked him up in free agency.
Something like that, yeah. I completely forgot he was on Vegas.
Doesn't even matter. I don't give the slightest shit about David Brock.
We don't need him.
I mean, the point I was trying to make was 13 spots until you finally reach a defenseman on their point chart. Their defense is a train wreck. Their goaltending, their goaltender, I mean, they've been running through these goaltenders like crazy. I know that these goalies have been getting a lot of reps on this team, whether that's the starter or the backup. But I mean, you look at Landon Kells, he's played 590 minutes. Your backup, Justin Getty, has played 245 minutes. Your third stringer, Nate Fasten, has even played 6 minutes. I mean, the goaltending and defense has been so bad that they've been sharing the wealth between these three guys. And I mean, obviously, Landon Kells is going to be likely your starter, being that, he's got a goals against average of a 14.1.
He had a rough
Justin,
night. He had a rough Sunday against San Diego.
Yeah, he absolutely did. Justin Getty, the backup, has a goals against average of a 15.16. Nate Fasten has a goals against average of a 29.75, which is nuts. I mean, he only played 6 minutes, but he gave up 4 goals. No, he actually gave up 3 goals in those 6 minutes, bringing his GAA to about a 30, almost, round 29.7, round that up to about a 30 goal differential. Defense is in rough shape, and there's a reason why they are last place in the league. And I don't think it's the leadership of Sean Williams. I think Sean Williams has what it takes to be a phenomenal coach in this league. I think it's negligence to the defense and goaltending positions, not attacking free agents, but there is a positive to this. They will likely have the first overall draft pick again, and they can start building their team through the draft. It's hard when you're an expansion team, especially in the NLL, when you can protect a ton of players on your roster from going to an expansion team. The NLL makes it extremely difficult, and I hope that is what they address in the next CBA conversation going into next year, where if you have an expansion team, limit the amount of players you can add to your protected list, because it is really hard to build a good team through the expansion draft when you can protect, 12 players or something like that, 10 or 12
Something
players.
Like that, yeah.
So it's really hard. So it looks like Las Vegas is going to have to try to build their team through the draft, because playoff conversations, you can already throw those out the window. They are done as far as this season is concerned. What they should be fighting for is the first overall pick. And that's what makes this weekend so important for the Bandits and so manageable for the Bandits. You got the 2 worst teams in the league, and all you need is 1 win to at least punch your ticket. You got a vulnerable team. You got a team that wants to get the first overall draft pick. I can't say the same about Albany, but for the team that wants the first overall pick in this upcoming draft in Las Vegas, going up against a team on the road to a team that can clinch in front of their home fans. That's why I'm thinking, I know the Bandits, they usually play better when they have better competition in their house, and they sometimes play down to lesser competition. We've seen that in the past, and it's a Friday night in Banditland, for whatever reason, that feels like a somewhat curse to the team. I simply do not see the Bandits losing this game at all. I can see the Bandits winning this game with ease. Tony and I say all the time, you can't take any team lightly, but there's just so much on the line here this early in the season. I don't think the Bandits shy away from a good old-fashioned butt whooping here.
No, the Bandits. You know that the Bandits are going to want to clinch a playoff spot tomorrow night for sure. And not only that, you mentioned earlier about how teams clinch a playoff spot a little bit too early. That could allow them to kind of like take their foot off the gas a little bit, kind of ease their way into the playoffs. Buffalo still hasn't clinched home field yet. So after we hopefully
or first place,
after we hopefully get a big win against Vegas, as you said, we definitely should. Vegas is not the best of teams right now, and obviously the Bandits have been the best team in the National Lacrosse League for the past 2 seasons. Definitely should be a Bandits win tomorrow. That's what I think is going to happen tomorrow. And then, just carry that momentum over in the game after that against Albany, because Albany, even though they're 5-9, their roster has a lot of talent. They're not going to be an easy out. And believe it or not, Albany is technically not too far away from the 8th seed. So that Albany is going to be playing their asses off on Saturday. So definitely need a big win tomorrow, because Vegas, like we mentioned, already eliminated from playoff contention. So, I mean, you got the Tucker out game tomorrow, so that's something for them to play for, but nothing meaningful as far as the rest of their season goes, as far as the standings or playoffs are concerned. So, and Buffalo hasn't clinched anything yet. So, Bandits should be able to take care of business tomorrow, because they know what they had to do. They know what the stakes. They know the stakes are high. They know what they're trying to go up against. They know what they're trying to go after. So definitely should be a big game for the boys in orange and black tomorrow.
And not just that, but the Bandits, the last home game they played, they lost. They want to avenge that home
The
defeat.
last 2 home games they lost.
Yeah, they might come into this game absolutely fuming. Like despite the big victory in the Saddle Dome, they might be coming into this game fuming, trying to avenge those 2 defeats. Because Johnny T, if you watch his press conference from a couple weeks ago, he wasn't mad about the loss to Calgary. He said losses like that happen. He's pissed that they're losing at home. That's what he's mad about. He's more frustrated that it's happening at home. This has all the recipes for a big Buffalo win, and I think you got to jump into some of the players to watch here. Can we see, number one, back-to-back great performances from Matt Vince in between the pipes? Because we've seen where he shuts a team down, the next week he comes in and gives up 14 or 15 goals. That has been an ongoing theme with this guy pretty much in and out, on and off this season. Number one, that's my first question I have. Do you see him starting in back-to-back games, Matt Vince? I think he's my number one player to watch for this weekend as a whole.
Yeah, I definitely see Vino starting in back-to-back games. Again, this is just easy for me to say just because of how great Matt Vince has been as a Bandit, and his pedigree and his stats as a goaltender throughout his whole career. I really don't see Orleman getting no disrespect to Orleman. I don't see him getting any playing time against Albany because both of these games are big. And we know how great Matt Vince is when he's on, and we've had plenty of back-to-back stretches throughout Matt Vince's career as a Bandit. So, he is who he is. That's why for myself as a Bandits fan, the Bandits faithful and the Bandits team in general, that's why they feel so confident, because they have the greatest goaltender of all time between the pipes. It don't matter if he's 22, doesn't matter if he's 42, because when Vino turns it on, as we saw last week, he's a hell of a goaltender, and that's an understatement for how good he is. So yeah, I don't see Johnny splitting up time between the 2 goaltenders tomorrow. I think Vino is going to take the weekend, hopefully able to run with it, hopefully able to put together 2 awesome games against Vegas and Albany. So yeah, Matt Vince is definitely a big player to watch. Can he rebound after the phenomenal 6 goals against that he had against Calgary? Can he rebound from that?
Well, I guess we're here to see. I think both goalies are going to get playing time, at least one of these games. I think you're going to see some separation in the game where maybe the Bandits are up by 5 or 6 goals in either Friday night's game or Saturday night's game late.
Yes.
Then you'll see Steve Orleman get some reps there in the fourth quarter just to take some of the pressure off of Matt Vince, because you don't want to risk him getting injured with maybe 5 minutes to play. Way to go. You clinched a playoff spot, but your starting goalie's injured. Just for safety precautions, you might want to see. And
for sure.
You can throw Steve Orleman in there. The games where Matt Vince has been pulled, and there haven't been many of those this year, but I think there's a couple off the top of my head. The Calgary game, there was another one that kind of got out of control. And then they took out Vince, they put in Orleman, and then they put Vince coming out at halftime. I think it was a San Diego game.
It was the Riptide game that we were, or maybe it was the San Diego game. But I
San
remember
Diego
that
home game
happened with the Riptide game that we went to last or January 24.
Yeah. They put in Devlin Shanahan.
Yeah.
But I think it was the Marvel night against San Diego right before halftime. They took him out, put Orleman in.
I didn't catch a whole lot of that game, so maybe they did. I have no idea.
Yeah, we've seen that happen before, where Vince maybe gets pulled, and then you see in the games that Steve Orleman's been in for the brief amount of time, he's looked great. I think he's looked fantastic. He came in against Calgary and stopped 4 out of 4 shots there late when they were down 17-11. So, I mean, he's had some good games under his belt. But yeah, I agree. I do think Matt Vince will get the start.
Yeah, just to clarify, I thought for a second you meant, does Vince start on Friday and then maybe Orleman gets, and then maybe for some reason Orleman starts for a little bit against Albany.
Well, that is what I meant. But I think you're still going to see both goalies get some reps in some capacity.
I hope so. I hope we get a big lead tomorrow and give Vino some rest for Saturday. Give us a nice, comfortable 9-10 goal lead. Put Orleman in there. Get him some more reps.
Yeah, I think so. I think if there's 2 teams in a back-to-back weekend, you're going to see that against. Might as well be the two worst teams in the league. But another player that I'm watching, I mean, Matt Vince is the number one player to watch this entire weekend,
sure.
without a shadow of a doubt. But I want to see if Kyle Buchanan can keep up this hot streak on offense, because this dude has been absolutely on fire. How many games with a back-to – is it 3 straight games with at least a hat trick for Kyle Buchanan?
Maybe. I don't know. I would have to figure that out. But he's been racking up a lot of goals lately. But I don't know if it's 3 straight games with a hat trick. I'll take your word for it. Seems like a Kyle Buchanan thing to do.
Maybe he scored 2 at home against Calgary.
He's been scoring a lot.
2. Yeah, I know he scored 3 on Calgary on the road against them.
Yes.
I think he scored a few against Saskatchewan too.
Yep.
But I want to see if he can continue this hot streak, because Kyle Buchanan has been the dynamite forward of this team. I mean, he has been absolutely tearing it up. He's been filling in the void of, where is the typical Josh Byrne been for the past month? Kyle Buchanan's kind of been plug and play and filling in that slot. Oh,
absolutely. He's a guy that you would love. Every team would want to have a guy like Kyle Buchanan on their roster. He's a water bug, so he's not easy to keep track of when he's out on the field. And especially when your top guys like Josh Byrne and Dane Smith might be getting shut down by the opposing defense. That leaves plenty of our secondary offensive weapons to get open, including number 91 Kyle Buchanan. So I expect him to keep his foot on the gas this week, and I expect another big game out of him from not only tomorrow, but for Saturday as well.
And not only Kyle Buchanan and Matt Vince, but this is a weekend where we get to see some redemption, and we get to see the return of the typical Dane Smith, the typical Josh Byrne. We have a chance this weekend to see, at least in maybe one or maybe even both of these games, your typical double-digit point nights out of Dane Smith or Josh Byrne. They've been struggling, or not, I can't even say the word struggling. Like, Josh Byrne had 6 points last week, and normally when you see that on the score sheet, you're like, oh, he had a pretty solid night. Josh Byrne is just such a good player that looks like an off night for him. You might see that typical double-digit point night out of Josh Byrne, at least in one of these 2 games, and the same is going for Dane Smith too. A big win, hopefully, against Las Vegas, and a big win, hopefully, against Albany on the road, a house that you can definitely win in and you've won multiple games in. This will get their confidence back. They'll start to click again. And then with that secondary scoring, like Kyle Buchanan, Chase Fraser, Tehoka Nanticoke, both of these games this weekend, for all the right reasons for the Bandits, they can get out of hand quickly. I think it does start with 92 and 22.
That would be great to see them, take over a game as they have done so many times in the past. As you mentioned, like a solid like three goals, 2 assists night for both of those guys. It's a phenomenal night, but it seems like, just because of how dynamic these 2 players are, offensively. These are 2 of the best players in the game. You feel like a 5-point night is almost like an off night for them, because you really expect, like, from a guy like Josh Byrne, you expect the stat line of like 6 goals and 4 assists. And from Dane Smith, you're expecting something like 3 goals and maybe like 8 or 9 assists. So It's been a while since we've had a game like that from those 2. I think at home, coming off 2 straight losses at home, those 2 are really going to want to come out, try their best to take over the game. So a game like that, like you mentioned, for either of those 2, I'd welcome it so much. I would be so happy if they have a typical, Josh Byrne game or a Dane Smith game, for sure.
And can we see, at least in the first game, because this is the only home game of the weekend, but can we see the first goal in Banditland for either Ron John or Kyle Matisse?
I mean, Kyle Matisse got the first goal of the game last Saturday.
Yep.
So I wouldn't expect hopefully a goal from Ron John would be sick. I'd be going crazy if Ron John got his first goal in Buffalo, but I don't expect him to be a whole lot much of a goal scorer. I picture him, or I see him more as like a defensive transition guy. But Kyle Matisse, on the other hand, has last I checked last week, I'm sure it's up to 6 now. I don't know how many assists he got last week, but I remember before or right after we got him from the deadline, his stat line was 5 goals and 28 assists. So we could definitely see Kyle Matisse getting on the goal sheet, and hopefully get his first goal at home for sure. I could definitely see Kyle Matisse, getting himself involved as far as goals go. Ron John, not so much, but Matisse for sure.
Yeah, and I stand corrected. It's not the two worst teams in the league. It's the worst team versus the third worst team. I forgot about the train wreck that is the Toronto Rock. They are 4-9. Albany is 5-9. So it's the worst team in the league and the third worst team that the Bandits are facing against. So before I get absolutely crucified in the comments, I just corrected myself on that. But yeah, Albany or Las Vegas and Buffalo, this is a Tucker out weekend. We got Sean Williams Friday and then Dyson Williams on Saturday. So it's going to be a whole Tucker out lymphoma night, Tucker out cup, whatever you call it, type of weekend. It starts with a big game in Las Vegas. I mean, this is the last thing I'm going to say about this game before I get into my score prediction for it, for the Bandits and Las Vegas Desert Dogs. But playoff implications on the line. You got a team that's fighting for the first overall draft pick coming into your building, a team that's struggled, a team that has no defense, no goaltending, and the Bandits came off of a huge victory in the Saddle Dome and are 10-2, looking to go 11-2 and make the playoffs. And also, by the way, tie the amount of wins they had all season last year. How do you go into this game and not expect a big win? I expect a big win, and I normally err on the side of caution when I'm doing these score predictions, but I don't think it's going to be close. I really don't have it being close. I have the Bandits winning this game 17-9.
I was going 16-9, so we're right on the same ballpark right there. I expect a huge win for tomorrow night's game. No reason why it should be a big win.
Kyle Matisse is going to score. Josh Byrne will get 11 points. And I think you'll finally see a goal from Chris Kluche, too. He'll break that goal scoring drought.
He needs one bad. He needs the goal bad.
You'll see Chris Kluche break that drought.
Yep. We'll love to see that.
So 16-9 Buffalo. I got 17-9. For all we know, this is Las Vegas, so you never really know what's going to happen. Let's get into the Albany game. A team that this team knows very, very well and has had an extensive history. If you even go back, this is the original Philadelphia Wings team. So the Bandits have had some long history with this team, with this franchise, even going back to the 90s, to the 1990s. They've been seeing these guys. Albany, but over the last couple of years, this is the team that the Bandits have gotten under their skin. Albany has gotten under the Bandits' skin a couple of times. They've ran into some hot goalies along the way. This Albany team, though, Jake, looks different. I don't know what happened from last year to this year. And, you watch that Albany and Bandits game, the home game from this year. Doug Jamieson doesn't look like himself. The Bandits, it seems like every single shot that's on goal somehow finds the way to go back into the back of the net. And you mentioned before that Albany still has a shot at making the playoffs because Ottawa's 5-7, Vancouver 6-7, Calgary 7-7, and then again, so is Rochester. Rochester's 8-7. So playoffs are still a possibility. They do have some ground to make up, but they only have 155 goals for. But the only plus side of that is they have 168 goals against, despite the 5-9 record. And I credit that a lot to Dougie Jamieson. But what in the world happened to this team from May of 2024 to March of 2025?
It's tough. It's really tough to answer that question because they have so many of the same pieces that they had coming from last year's championship run, minus Travis Longboat. But you also added Dyson Williams to your team. And he's had 19 goals, 30 assists, 49 points in 14 games as a rookie. And he'll
be rookie of the year.
That is absolutely phenomenal numbers from Dyson Williams. And they just added Kyle Jackson from the trade deadline. It's a phenomenal pickup for them. So, yeah, it's tough to say. There's the NLL is very, very unpredictable. I guess unless you're the Buffalo Bandits, but I think the league in general is it's hard to tell what the season outlook is going to be every single year. But like I just said, unless you're the Bandits, they'll be finishing somewhere right around the top. But yeah, it's interesting to look at, see how far Albany has fallen compared from last May up until now, because you got your Simmons and you got your Kurtz and your Ethan Walkers and your Dyson Williams and your Sam First. They have so much talent on their roster. It's just, and you got one of the best goalies in the game in Doug Jamieson. So it's crazy to see how far they've fallen. Even though they're 5-9, this isn't a team that you take lightly at all this weekend. But it's interesting. I thought they'd be a lot better than where they're at right now for sure. Definitely would think that they would have a lot more wins than losses. I expected them to be right around the top 5 or 6 before the season started.
Yeah, and Albany is the perfect example of this is why this league is so hard to win in. The Bandits are just that talented where they put themselves in contention every single year because you can go from top contender to bottom feeder in a matter of months. It's been 10 months since the Bandits clinched the back-to-back title against the very same team in Albany. Now, they do have some great players on that roster. I mean, you mentioned Dyson Williams. They got Kyle Jackson. They're not trading for Kyle Jackson if they think that their season is blown up in flames. They think that they still have a shot at this thing. If they make the 8 seed, they can make things interesting, especially in the first round. That would be insane if the Bandits held on to their first seed and Albany somehow squeaked in at 8. That would be crazy to see them match up in the quarterfinals. But the point is you're not trading for Kyle Jackson to mail in the season. That's just not going to happen. Kyle Jackson's not going to sign to play for a team that's going to mail in the season. There's no way. Trading Travis Longboat, though, questionable. Definitely a bit questionable. I thought he was one of the top dogs on that team, but they still have Sam Firth, who's definitely a player to watch. Doug Jamieson is probably my number 1 player to watch on this team because you either have Doug Jamieson, who looks like prime Dallas Elliott in the net, or you'll get Doug Jamieson that looks like Angus Goodleaf in that, and he gives up everything. It's usually nothing in between. I mean, you're either going to get the really, really, really bad Dougie Jamieson, or you're going to get the really, really, really good one. And it's going to be interesting to see how the Bandits attack him, especially coming off of a back-to-back or starting off on a Friday night game and then going into a Saturday night game against Albany coming off a 4-hour bus ride.
Yeah, definitely for sure. Hopefully the boys aren't winded too much because, like we mentioned earlier, it should be a decent sized win for the Bandits on Friday. But if you get the win tomorrow, I should say it would be a decent sized win tomorrow. But if you get a win tomorrow, you got to turn the page quick because we got a tough Albany customer coming up, and the boys are gonna be ready to play out in front of their home fans in Albany. And as much shit as we give them, when we saw them last May in the finals, they did show up and they did show out. They had a very solid attendance, and I'm sure that they're going to have another solid attendance number tomorrow night. They do, from what we've seen, they do have a very good fan base. It seems like they've been really trying their best to pack their house throughout these last couple of seasons, and they've been doing a good job at it. So the crowd's going to be ready to go. The Firewolves are going to be ready to go. And I'll tell you who also is going to be ready to go against the Bandits, and that's newly signed former defenseman on the Bandits, and that's Ethan O'Connor. I know if you saw it on Twitter today.
Yep.
But Ethan O'Connor did sign with the Albany Firewolves, so he's going to be ready to go against his old boys. So it's going to be a crazy game on Saturday. That's for sure.
I mean, Sam Firth, Ethan O'Connor, Dougie Jamieson, Kyle Jackson I'll be watching a bunch.
Is Callum Crawford still hurt?
I don't think he's playing. I'm missing another big one for Albany. I know I am. Ty Kurtz. Ty Kurtz,
Alex
Simmons. Yep. I mean, they have a very, very good team.
On
what
paper,
else? You'd think it's about execution that they're lacking right now.
This is also going to be, and we didn't mention this guy for Vegas earlier on in the podcast, but Tyrell Hammer Jackson, who's their who plays defense for Vegas, he is their top dog on faceoffs. He's got a 44%. He's 44% on faceoffs this year, and we're going up against, or Connor Farrell will be going up against another very tough customer, arguably top 2 in the National Lacrosse League, in Joe Nardella.
I think he's top 1.
He is at, I would say he's number 2. I would say Withers is my number 1.
Yeah, Jake Withers probably does get the slight edge there, but yeah.
But Nardella is definitely a very close 2. He's at 68% in the faceoff dot this year.
Yeah.
So we need a big, we haven't mentioned his name yet, so if there's a big player to watch, we'll get to him later. But Joe Nardella is a very big, we've mentioned a whole lot of good players from Albany, but Joe Nardella is a very big player to watch because just his ability to win faceoffs alone is enough to take over a game. So definitely have to try. Connor Farrell has to try his best to keep him in check because once Nardella gets hot, it's tough to contain him.
And if you've watched the Milkman consistently over the past 3 weeks, he hasn't been looking like himself. He has not been looking like himself at all. There's blood in the water there. So if there's any silver lining for Albany, it's, hey, you could probably dominate the faceoff circle. It might be a little bit different for Las Vegas. You said that he averaged 44% there.
Still decent numbers.
I would imagine that Connor Farrell's numbers are very similar to that. I could probably get behind that.
Connor's at 54.
Yeah, 54. It's probably going to be even split in that game. I'm not really worried about that one on Friday night. Saturday is going to be a different story for sure. But, I mean, obviously, it's kind of hard to talk about this game right now because if you win in Las Vegas, I feel like a lot of the pressure would be off of what would have been a tense bout between Albany and Buffalo. The playoffs are already clinched if you win against Las Vegas. But if you lose somehow against Las Vegas, which Friday night in Banditland, anything could happen. But the Bandits will be extra pissed off going into Albany's game. So it's really kind of hard to preview this game because we don't know who won the first one. So I think we are pretty safe naming those players to watch. They got a pretty stacked roster on paper. I just don't know how they're not finishing the job and executing properly with a roster that looks like that. But, I mean, we already kind of mentioned players to watch for Buffalo going into this game. I mean, we started off with Connor Farrell. We already kind of touched on it a little bit for the last game with Matt Vince. I think he's going to start. I think a miracle has to happen where he doesn't start, especially in Albany, where we're kind of seeing this start to be a rivalry. I mean, the Bandits and the New England Black Wolves used to butt heads a bit, but they weren't ever like big rivals. Albany and Buffalo, this is a different story. We've seen championship history between these two teams now, and it's never been the same for Albany since they scored the goalie goal on us. It's never been the same for them. And my question to you before I throw it over to you for your key player to watch for this Albany game is, how many ranch references do you think we're going to see all over Twitter this week before the Albany? Because that weird obsession that they have over our chicken wings, right? How many ranch references do you think we're going to see going into Saturday?
Honestly, probably not a whole lot because this is a regular season game. But, obviously when we're in the championship against Albany, it's a completely different story. And they're going to try to insult us with, wings and stuff like that. Wings and dressing is really going to get under our skin. So
I don't eat wings with blue cheese or ranch. I just eat them the way they are.
I love blue cheese, but I mean, there's nothing wrong with. I don't eat ranch with wings, but ranch isn't a horrible dressing by any means. But if I had to pick a dressing, it's obviously blue cheese. But if I don't eat wings with dressing, that's completely fine too. But it's going to take a lot more than, saying that we eat our wings with ranch to really get under our skin. But I wouldn't expect a whole lot of wing references. Maybe that'll change by the time we get to Saturday. But if it's a regular season game, probably not a whole lot. But championship matchups, it's a different story.
Yeah, and I wonder if they're going to send out another graphic previewing the Buffalo game with another player that doesn't play for the Bandits anymore. Remember that last one that they did on their Twitter page? They're like, game night in Buffalo, and they showed the graphic of Joe Nardella fighting Brad McCulley.
Oh my god, yeah, I do remember that. That's hilarious.
I'm like, what are we doing? Brad hasn't played for the Bandits in over a calendar year, so there's social media.
Would love to have him back.
Not only does the record need to change for Albany, but so does their or need some improvement, but so does their social media team. That's another story. But I mean, tensions, I don't think they're really high between these two teams, if I'm being completely honest. I mean, Buffalo and Albany, they have a little rivalry going, championship history, but it's night and day difference where the Bandits and the Albany Firewolves are in the standings. It's not like it was last year when Albany finished with a higher seed. Bandits had to travel there for game one. It's not really like that. It feels like if Albany loses one more game this year, Fat Lady singing, it's over. The Bandits should have some motivation going into this week. They had the chance to clinch playoffs on the first night and then pretty much put the hopes of Albany's fighting back, clawing back for a season comeback to climb back into the playoffs they have a chance to ending their season basically. So the Bandits should be fully motivated going into this week. Who's one of your players to watch for the Bandits going into the Albany game?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Connor Farrell for sure. I know we mentioned him earlier, but yeah, definitely the faceoffs are gonna be so key in this game because it's Farrell versus Nardella. Nardella is a top 2 faceoff guy in the National Lacrosse League, so super important that Farrell stays dialed in for the whole game. I'm not expecting him. Nobody should be expecting him to go perfect in the faceoff dot, but try your best to win half. If you win more than half against Joe Nardella, that's a win for Connor Farrell in my book. So, like
Give
I
me
said
35%.
What's that?
Give me 35%
Even
against
that,
Joe Nardella. That would be a W.
I'll take it. I would take that for sure. Because if you let Nardella win too many faceoffs, that could single-handedly take over the game because I've said this before. It's like beating a dead horse at this point, but more faceoffs equals more possessions, and more possessions equals more opportunity for goals. And we need Farrell to be on the positive side of that so we can have those opportunities and we can score those goals. So Connor Farrell, my player to watch against Albany on Saturday night.
I'm going to go with Chase Fraser. I mean, Chase Fraser knows how to dominate Doug Jamieson. He finds those crazy goals against him. I mean, he was one of the key players of the hidden ball trick goal in Game 2 last year.
Sure was.
Look out for Chase Fraser to make a big play on Dougie Jamieson. Also, kind of overdue for a 3 or 4 goal night. I can't believe I'm saying this in 2025 because I didn't really think of him as that much of a goal scorer, but Ian McKay. I mean, you got Kyle Matisse back there to help out on D. You got Ron John in the transition spot. Probably means you're going to start seeing Ian McKay more around the front door, and maybe he'll pot in a couple against Albany as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we even since last week, we saw Matisse and John play more so of a defensive role, even though Matisse did score a nice transition goal to open up the scoring for us last week. But yeah, you're going to see McKay a lot more now on the offensive side of the ball. We know how good of a Swiss Army knife that he is. But due to the additions of Ron John and Kyle Matisse, it's definitely going to let Ian McKay see more of the offensive reps. So yeah, be nice to see a Hattie or a 4-goal night from Ian McKay. I believe he's still second on the team on total goals scored. So yeah, be nice to see him add to that total. I could definitely see Mickey having a big night on Saturday if he plays more mostly offense.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't count it out. But I think we got to jump into our score predictions here for the Bandits versus the Albany game. Now, this is where it gets really tough because we don't know the outcome of Friday's game. We don't know the attitude of the players coming off of that game. I think they'll win or lose on Friday against Las Vegas. They're going to be going in because they know it's Albany. They don't like those guys. Sure. Albany doesn't like them. I think they'll already have enough motivation going into this game. I don't think they'll be too winded either, but you saw the last back-to-back that the Bandits played, and it was wins on the road. Or actually, no, they won on the road and they lost at home. It was the San Diego, the overtime loss. They were 6 seconds to win from winning their back-to-back, but they did split the last time they played back-to-back games over a weekend. I could see the Bandits taking both of these games, but I'm going to go with the Bandits beating Albany. I'm going to say 14-11.
Okay. I think my prediction, it was going to be a little bit more lower scoring. I still think the Bandits will win on Saturday night, but I have us winning by a score of 12-9.
All right. Yeah. I mean, Matt Vince holding it down. So for you, back-to-back games where Matt Vince doesn't allow in more than 10 goals, which, yeah, I think that would be really, really good. But, yeah, I mean, we don't want them to overwork themselves on Friday's game. We want them to win both of these games because originally the scenario started off last weekend. The Bandits needed to win and Vancouver needed to lose, or Buffalo needed to win and Calgary needed to lose, or the Bandits needed to win both games to clinch a playoff spot. Now it's so easy to understand. Win and you're in. Just take one of two, preferably two of two. But clinch the playoff spot now and then focus on home field.
Definitely. Just take care of business, get a big win on Friday, and then, like you said, there should still be tons of motivation going into Saturday's game and the games beyond, because we still have yet to clinch home field, and we got to get that done as well. So take care of business on Friday, go on, clinch home field, hopefully clinch the 1 seed as well.
Yep, that's it. We'll end the show right now with these 3 words. And what are those 3 words?
Ready?
Yep. Let's
go
Bandits.
Bandits, baby.
Let's go.
Sweep the weekend. Let's
Win
go.
and in.
It is.